Nestled between Switzerland and Austria, Liechtenstein is so small you might miss it on the map. Seriously, it's only 62 square miles. That's like a postage stamp compared to the United States. But don't let its size fool you. This little country has a history that punches well above its weight. We're talking centuries of emperors, wars, and enough intrigue to make your head spin. Liechtenstein is a landlocked country, meaning it's surrounded by land on all sides. No beaches here, folks. But hey, they've got mountains. The Alps dominate the landscape, making it a haven for skiers and hikers. And if you're into medieval castles, boy, are you in for a treat. Speaking of castles, perched high above the Rhine Valley is Vaduz Castle. It's the official residence of the Prince of Liechtenstein, who, by the way, is a real prince. We're not talking Disney princes here. This guy has actual power. More on that later. So, Liechtenstein, small but mighty, landlocked but lovely, and ruled by an actual prince. Stay tuned as we delve into the incredible history of this pint-sized nation. From its medieval roots to its modern-day charm, there's so much more to discover about Liechtenstein. You won't want to miss it. Our story begins way back in the Holy Roman Empire, a sprawling mess of duchies, counties, and principalities that made up much of Central Europe. This was a time of great complexity and intrigue, where borders were fluid and allegiances could shift overnight. It was a time when knights were bold, castles were cold, and everyone seemed to be related. Enter the Liechtenstein family, a noble Austrian clan with a penchant for, well, land. They were ambitious, and had their eyes set on expanding their influence. In the 17th century, they managed to snag 2 counties, Vaduz and Schellenberg. These acquisitions were strategic, even if the lands themselves weren't particularly impressive. Now, these weren't exactly prime real estate. They were mountainous, hard to reach, and frankly, not that interesting to anyone except the Liechtenstein family. They were mountainous, hard to reach, and frankly, not that interesting to anyone except the Liechtenstein family, but the Liechtensteins saw potential where others did not. But here's the thing about the Holy Roman Empire. To be a real player, you needed a seat in the imperial diet, the empire's parliament. This was the center of power where decisions were made and influence was wielded. And guess what? You couldn't get a seat unless you were a prince. This was a rule that kept many ambitious families from gaining real power. So, the Liechtensteins pulled some strings, greased some palms, probably, and voila! Through a series of clever maneuvers, and perhaps a bit of luck, they managed to elevate their status. In 1719, the counties of Vaduz and Schellenberg were merged and elevated to the status of a principality. This was a significant achievement, marking the beginning of a new chapter for the Liechtenstein family. Thus, the Principality of Liechtenstein was born. It was a small, seemingly insignificant territory, but it had now gained a new level of importance. It was a bit of a technicality, sure, but hey, it got them that coveted seat in the Diet. This seat allowed them to participate in the political machinations of the empire, and that, my friends, is how a small, strategically insignificant patch of land became a fully fledged country, sort of. It's a fascinating tale of ambition, strategy, and a bit of luck. Remember those mountains we talked about? Well, they weren't just good for skiing, they also made Liechtenstein a bit of a pain to conquer. That didn't stop people from trying, of course. Over the centuries, this tiny principality found itself caught in the crosshairs of various European power struggles. There were wars of succession, religious conflicts, and the occasional land grab. Liechtenstein got passed around like a hot potato, occupied by everyone from the Habsburgs to the French. But through it all, the principality managed to maintain a surprising degree of autonomy. Part of this was due to the Liechtenstein family's knack for diplomacy. They were masters at playing the great powers off each other, forming alliances and switching sides whenever it suited them. They were like the Switzerland of princes, but with better wine cellars. Another reason for Liechtenstein's survival? Honestly, it was just too small to bother with. While empires clashed around them, the people of Liechtenstein went about their lives farming, raising families, and probably gossiping about the latest royal scandal. Section 4. Napoleon and the 19th century. Big changes for a tiny nation. The 19th century brought about some of the most significant changes in Liechtenstein's history. This tiny nation, nestled in the heart of Europe, was about to experience a whirlwind of events that would shape its future. And who else could be at the center of it all but Napoleon Bonaparte, that tiny French general with a Napoleon complex the size of Europe. His ambitions knew no bounds, and his influence stretched far and wide. Napoleon's conquests swept across Europe, redrawing borders and toppling empires. His military campaigns were relentless, leaving a trail of change in their wake. Liechtenstein, despite its best efforts to stay neutral, got caught in the crossfire. The tiny principality found itself entangled in the larger geopolitical struggles of the time. In 1806 it was absorbed into the Confederation of the Rhine, a puppet state of Napoleon's French Empire. This new political alignment brought both challenges and opportunities. But here's the funny thing about Napoleon. For all his talk of liberty, equality, and fraternity, he actually did Liechtenstein a favor. His reforms, though self-serving, inadvertently set the stage for the principality's future independence. He abolished the Holy Roman Empire, which, let's face it, had been on life support for centuries. This monumental change forced Liechtenstein to navigate its own path. This forced Liechtenstein to stand on its own 2 feet for the first time. The principality began to carve out its own identity, separate from the shadow of the Holy Roman Empire. After Napoleon's eventual defeat, spoiler alert, he loses, Liechtenstein joined the German Confederation, a much looser union of German-speaking states. This new alliance provided a different kind of stability. This period saw Liechtenstein begin to develop its own distinct identity, separate from the Holy Roman Empire and its tumultuous past. The 19th century was a transformative era for this tiny nation, setting the stage for its modern identity. Section 5, World Wars and Neutrality, How to Stay Peaceful, mostly. The 20th century dawned, and with it came 2 world wars that engulfed Europe in bloodshed. Liechtenstein, wisely, stuck to its policy of neutrality. Now, staying neutral during a world war is a bit like trying to stay dry in a hurricane. It's not easy, and you're bound to get a little wet. Liechtenstein, despite its best efforts, faced economic hardship and political pressure from both sides. But they managed to avoid getting directly involved in the fighting. And that, in the grand scheme of things, is a win. After World War II, Liechtenstein emerged as a peaceful and prosperous nation, albeit one with a slight identity crisis. They spoke German, used the Swiss franc as their currency, and relied on Switzerland for their defense. Section 6, Modern Liechtenstein Banking, Stamps, and a Surprisingly High GDP. Today, Liechtenstein is a thriving nation with one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world. How did this tiny country achieve such economic success? Well, it involves a bit of banking, a dash of tourism, and a whole lot of postage stamps. Yes, you read that right, postage stamps. Liechtenstein is a world leader in philately, the art of stamp collecting. Their stamps are highly sought after by collectors, bringing in a surprising amount of revenue. But it's not all fun and games in the world of Liechtenstein. The country has also faced criticism for its banking practices, which some say are a bit too lax when it comes to financial transparency. Still, there's no denying that Liechtenstein has come a long way from its humble beginnings. Section 7. Fun Fact Time. You won't believe who forgot they owned Liechtenstein. Here's a fun fact to impress your friends at your next cocktail party. Did you know that in 1989, Prince Hans Adam II of Liechtenstein discovered that he actually owned an extra 600 acres of land in Austria? Seems someone forgot to update the maps after World War I. It's just one of those quirky little historical hiccups that makes Liechtenstein so darn charming. This tiny nation, nestled in the heart of Europe, might be small, but it's packed with centuries of history, intrigue, and yes, even a little bit of humor.